What's up? What's up? Welcome to episode 5 of Sermon Breakdown. I am Pastor John, and I am here with my good friend Jackson DeRose. Jackson, how we doing, man?
It's good, man. I feel honored. I feel like I don't quite deserve being on the podcast 2 weeks in a row, but
Hey,
it's a privilege, man. I'm happy to
you're
be here.
you're a worthy guest, man. I'm grateful that you take the time to be willing to do this. We are in a series entitled "Transform Rebels" at Coopersville Reformed Church, and we're making our way through the letter that Paul wrote to the Corinthian church. First Corinthians is where we're at. We're in chapter 9. I just taught a message last night, or not last night, but yesterday morning on First Corinthians chapter 9, and I want to just go over briefly. Usually I'm a Trinitarian, Jackson, when it comes to like points in my message. So usually I work by threes, but yesterday I just worked with 2 points. So I
Listen,
didn't.
man, eventually you're gonna get down to one. Listen, I'm a big 1 point guy.
Yeah,
I'm a huge
yeah,
1 point guy. I don't get the
got it.
3 point situations, but
I
hey,
got it. Hey, here's the thing. Even whether it's 2 points, 3 points, 5 points, 10 points, for me, even if there's points, they're really sub points to the big point. And so we'll go over that. My first point was those who are willing to be all things to all people so they might win some. That's the text we're working out of. 1 Corinthians 9, verses 19 through 23. Paul is sharing to the church really a missional strategy, a missional principles that we should be using today to reach people and to have gospel effectiveness. And we'll talk about what is effective and what might not be as effective throughout this podcast. So continue to listen, please. But the first point I use is those who are missionally strategic should be willing to sacrifice preferences to reach the lost. Jackson, do you have any thoughts on that first point before I get to the second one?
yeah. Wait, can you ask that again? I was reading first second First
That's all
Corinthians
right, man.
chapter
Hey, I
9.
don't want to. Hey, if this is your morning devotional time, I don't want to get in the way of it. All right. No, the first point was, are you willing to sacrifice preferences to reach the lost? I didn't ask it in a question, but I actually like it in question form.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm willing to sacrifice preferences as long as we have an understanding of what preferences are. You know what I mean? If they're truly preferences, then yeah, I'm willing to sacrifice those to reach the lost. I'm even willing to sacrifice convictions for the sake of unity with the body of believers. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I
And there's
love
something
that.
there too,
There
you know?
is.
I
There
and
is.
I think it's different though to say that I'm willing to sacrifice convictions to reach the lost. Because
Yeah.
then I think that gets into dodgy territory. But
Yeah.
with believers, certainly.
Well, yeah, to keep the unity, and I think that's actually so relevant with the theme of First Corinthians. You know, there's a lot of disunity within the church. Paul is looking to unify the church around a singular mission and a singular goal. Some of the axillary stuff can get in the way then, and it can certainly get in the way today. Great points there. And then the second point was we should have a goal that moves us. And that goal is making Jesus known and joining Jesus in his mission to seek and to save the lost. That should be our highest priority as believers. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that's what Paul's saying in this text. I think it's clear. I think that's some straight exegesis right there, brother.
That's it, man. And so, really, that's the major point to the sub points, and maybe how we can do that.
Yeah.
One of the questions. So, what we do here is we have people ask questions, and so we've gotten a couple of questions, and so I want to share one of those questions with you guys now. Here's one of the questions: what does Pastor John mean when he says Timothy has skin in the game?
Mm.
And I know who sent this question, and he sent it with a laughing emoji. And so
It wasn't a curious question. It was more of a
he knew.
He
And
knew.
so
He knew what he was doing.
one of the ways in which Paul lived this out was his traveling companion Timothy, who was also a young man that he mentored. They were on missionary journeys together. Timothy actually served the church in Ephesus as a key leader in its early years. And in order to be a better witness to the Jewish Christians, Timothy, although his dad was a Gentile and his mother was a Jew, Timothy was not circumcised. And so, Paul, in order to reach those people, well, Timothy, in order to reach those people, decided that he would be circumcised as an adult man, in order to not have any barrier between him and reaching the people who he desired to reach for Jesus. Man,
Talk about preferences. Like, I don't know anyone that would be their preference.
man,
Timothy probably wasn't like, I prefer to
yeah,
to get circumcised as an adult
yeah.
male.
Oh,
I talk about sacrificing preferences.
dog, that's sacrificing for the mission right there. And so, as a bit of a joke, off script in both first and second service yesterday, I said, I guess you could say Timothy had skin in the game. And there was some, ooh, but yeah. So, just next time, just stick to my notes probably. But this second question is way more pertinent to our topic and conversation. And it's a very serious question. I think it's a phenomenal question. So this individual asked to be like or to save some, in relation to 1 Corinthians 9:19 through 23. The question is, how much should we be like sinners to save sinners? Jackson, I'm going to hand this off to you, and then I'm going to take it and run with it as well. Like, what do you
Yeah,
think here?
it's a great question. I mean, it's what I hear this in this question is where's the line,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Where's the line of me trying to be like sinners, and then where's that line where it becomes, you know, I've gone too far to save them. You know,
Yeah.
I think that the first thing that I would like to say and just throw out there is that ultimately you going to any length to be like someone to save them, that you have to question, should I go this far? The
Mm-hmm.
answer is probably no. You
Mm-hmm.
probably shouldn't go that far if you're having to question it.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say that is because the ultimate weight of saving someone's soul does not rest on you. It doesn't rest
Mm.
on me.
Yeah.
God is going to save who he's going to save, right? God, we
Amen.
serve a God who who does that. He doesn't give us the weight, right? We plant seeds, we water, but it's God who gives
Mm.
the growth. And
That's
so
right.
first and foremost, if you're in a situation you're having to question, man, I want to save these sinners, and I'm at the bar and they want me to take shots with them. I mean, is that, you're like, I don't know, I don't feel at peace. Don't if you're having to question it, don't, you know. And I
Yes.
think that would be my first point.
Yeah.
Um, I don't. Do you have anything to say about that?
No, I think that's so good. And I actually shared a story in my sermon, Jackson, where the Spirit of God was literally provoking me to say no. I went to a Chicago White Sox game with someone. I was around 21 years old. And I had an idea, I had an inkling that this individual had a bad relationship with alcohol. And as soon as
Mm,
we got to the game, I had every right to have a drink at the game. I'm not like anti-alcohol Christian. I am like pro be very careful and do not stumble into drunkenness, and then know where you're at, know yourself enough, have enough self-awareness to know, like, hey, for a lot of people it's just good to stay away from it altogether. That's the
yeah,
safest route, and for a lot of people that's just the best route. But for this individual, I was like, yeah, I'll have a drink. And in my spirit, I knew, although I know I'm not going to have three, four, five, this individual has that in his mind. And so as
Hmm.
soon as I said yes, like my spirit was provoked to be like, what are you doing, man? And so I think that's so wise. Like you
Yeah.
need to trust the spirit's discernment, guidance, correction in your life. And oftentimes that comes in the moment. You can't plan that, but you should come in with a game plan, especially if you're at a bar and you're trying to reach a friend or something. You better come in with a game plan because you can get sideswiped real quick. Thoughts there, Jay?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I think I just lost you for a second.
No, that's okay.
But yeah, absolutely. I think what I love about that story is that right there is a perfect example of Paul's overall point
Hmm.
in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, right? He starts by saying not only is he surrendering preferences, but he's actually even willing to surrender freedoms
Mm,
for the sake of the gospel.
that's right.
Right. And when you look at 1 Corinthians 9, I didn't get a chance to listen to the message, but if you, I don't know how much you talked about it, but in the first section of 1 Corinthians 9, he's talking about his freedoms that he gives up.
Yeah.
Like he'd be free to take offerings from the church, but he chooses not to.
Yeah. That's right.
Right. He acts as if he's living under the law, though he's not actually under the law with Jews to try and save Jews. And so
Yeah.
he's giving up freedoms, just like you
That's
were
right.
free to have a drink.
Right.
He's giving up freedom. So Paul, his overall point is he's not just going to give up preferences, but he's willing to give up anything
That's great. It's great.
to have it not get in the way
Yeah.
of reaching the lost.
When that is your main mission, when that is your main goal to join Jesus in his work to seek and save the lost, when that becomes our main singular goal, man, the extremes that we'll go to as the people of God should be great. And we should be willing to not only, I love that, Jackson, not only sacrifice preferences, but also sacrifice freedoms, things that we are free to. And you're absolutely right. If you go back to 1 Corinthians 8, he's talking about sacrificing freedoms like eating meat, that were
Yeah.
sacrificed to idols. He said, man, I'm pro meat eater here. I can eat that meat with a clear conscience, but there are some of y'all that can't. And guess what? If I'm sitting at the table with y'all, I'm not going to eat that meat. It's okay. For that
Yeah.
day, I'll be vegetarian. All right.
Yeah.
I'll stay away from the pork. I'll stay away from the bacon. I'll stay away from whatever it is you need me to stay away from because you're not comfortable with that. I'm good with that because I don't want to be a stumbling block.
Yeah.
It's,
Absolutely.
it's beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the other thing that, strikes me about this question is that I think ultimately the answer to this question lies with are you tangibly sinning? Is it
Mm-hmm.
leading you into sin?
Mm-hmm.
And is it in some way against the word of God, which is really all guided by the spirit that's within us that's going to, if we're being attentive to the spirit in a genuine way, we're going to know where that line is.
Yeah.
Right. And then if
Yeah.
we play it safe by saying, I'm just not, if I'm questioning, I'm not going to go, right. That might in and of itself be the answer to the question. But I think the other thing that is, um, feels important to me is when we talk about what does it mean to be like some, to save some, you kind of have two camps,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have more of the traditional, I don't want to say fundamental,
Yeah.
but you got your Paul Washers, your John Pipers, who I love dearly, like you got those guys, the MacArthurs, who they're they're not being like to save some in any sense. You know what I mean? They're like, this is our thing. We're not wavering, period. You know? And then you have the other side of the camp that is like this celebrity Christian culture that's trying to dress cool, that's trying to, it even goes as far as I remember at like Hillsong, New York, they had like a separate celebrity section where the celebrities would sit in church together, and it's like this almost caving to the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have these kind of two camps,
Mm-hmm.
and then obviously there's so much space in between, and we want to be somewhere in between, there. And it's interesting. It also reminds me of preachers with sneakers.
Ooh.
There's something about, preachers that they feel like, man, if I'm gonna like win these people over, I gotta like look cool and like be the guy. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
And there's something about that that's icky. There's something about that that is like, you know, is your
Yeah.
motivation reaching the lost or is your motivation being dope? You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's such a balance there. And so, like, to your first point, like when I'm hearing you say like those names and those individuals, and I don't know if I would label, I don't know if I'd label them this, but like separatist comes to mind, like
Yeah.
almost like we separate from the culture in a lot of ways. And I don't know, you mentioned Piper. I think Piper actually historically has done a pretty good job of stepping in some places.
That's
Um,
fair. That is fair. That is
and
fair.
yeah, and there may be others that maybe not as much, but separatist, and then like those who are just straight up like, man, they're consuming it, you know. So it's
Yeah.
like, are you a separatist or are you just straight up consuming the culture, and the culture then thus is consuming you,
Right.
right? Because that's what culture does, and that's how Satan can use it. And culture in and of itself is not a bad thing. It can be a glorious thing. It can be a beautiful thing. I don't think we should be separatists, but I also think we shouldn't be consumed by the culture by any means. Here's another thing I want to point out in this question. And Jackson, I might go off a little bit here. So at any time, if you're like, man, I want to share something, just chime right in and I'll shut
Okay.
up. I don't want to separate ourselves too far from the thought of like sinners, as if as if we don't struggle with sin, as if we don't wrestle with sin. Jesus, it's very clear. The gospel is very clear. Romans 5:8. God proved his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us, right? And so one of the first things I think we should acknowledge is we are like them in many ways. In many ways. First, humanity. We're all created in the image and in the likeness of God. That is a ground that we are all walking on together, regardless if you're a Christ follower or if you're not a Christ follower. Second, we are all in need of grace and mercy. And now, look, we can get into common grace and special grace and, well, okay. We're all in need of grace. We're all in need of mercy. We all stand in need of that. Thirdly, we too wrestle with sin as saints, as those who are transformed in being transformed by the Spirit of God. We still wrestle with sin. So there's some ground there that we can relate with. And also, don't forget when you were one of them. Don't forget when you were lost and dead in your sin. Okay, for some of us that might be longer, or than others in terms of how long ago that was. But we should all be able to remember that. And even we still have dark days today as Christians. We still wrestle with powers and principalities and wickedness. Now, the difference is we're wrestling, and perhaps the non Christian, I'm assuming, is not wrestling with it, just living in it. There is a distinct difference there. I want to point that out. But lastly, we are all part of culture. We're not saved in a vacuum. Jesus approached the culture, he engaged the culture, and he too was a part of the culture of his day, right? He had meals, he washed his hands a certain way, right? There were Jewish traditions that Jesus engaged with, and that allowed him to engage with those who would be labeled sinners. And he was known as a friend of sinners, a friend of gluttons. He was actually known as a glutton wrongfully, and a drunkard, because of the friendships that he had produced through his engaging of those within the culture who were not necessarily religious in particular. So, any thoughts there, Jackson, as I share those things?
No, I mean, I think that that is that's all good. I think if you my question for you, John, is if
Mm-hmm.
you've been in this text, man. You've been
Yeah.
you've been in it this week. You've been
Yeah.
grinding it out. If you had to say, I guess I'm curious. I've been trying to think in my mind, like if I were trying to answer, if I was like counseling somebody and I was trying to answer this question for them, and they were really
Mhm.
burdened with it. They're like, man, I want to go, and I want people to be saved. I want God to use me to be a part of
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Like, how 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 do I guard myself in this? How do I?
Yeah.
Where's the line?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
would you be counseling someone on where's the line? Is there a simple like stint meter that we can give that's like this is the test. This is the way to find this, or is it more of a spirit discerning process that is maybe more nuanced?
Yeah, I think it's way more of a spirit-led process because I don't. There are certain things that you just can't find a verse for, like oh, just there's a verse. I mean, there's a obviously don't be a drunkard. Okay, don't fall into drunkenness. Okay, like yeah, there's your verse for that situation, perhaps. But can I have one? Is that what's too much? What's too many? And so for me, I think first spend time with God. Like, be in silence before God and allow Him to transform you, allow Him to mold you. Listen for His voice. Listen for His voice. Secondly, be authentic. Like, be you.
Yeah.
Like, be you. Here's the thing. Let me show this, Jackson. Like, I think we talk a lot about, we use the word evangelize, and the word evangelize has gotten really a bad rap in our society because, like, when oftentimes we're like, man, I just feel like I'm ready. I feel like I'm ready to go. Lord, send me, I'll go, right? Prophet Isaiah. All of a sudden we go and we're like, oh man, I was not built for this. I was not ready for this. I'm full of fear. Boldness is nowhere near me right now. I'm looking for something. Oftentimes when we are evangelizing, um, that looks like us, looks a lot
Yeah.
like us. Like big gulps, eh? Awkward silence. All right, I'm just moving forward.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's great. I actually got that thought from a meme that someone sent me on Instagram.
yeah.
So yeah, I think we got to be authentic. I think we have to listen to the Lord in prayer, but I also think we have to listen to individuals who we are seeking to reach.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
are we actually like listening to them? Like, we're
Mm.
not, like, when we're engaging in Christian relationship, we are not on our soapboxes.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't street evangelism, right?
Right.
Like, you're engaging with someone who needs a friend,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
so, like, you don't need to be on your soapbox. You need to listen. And when you
Yeah.
listen, what you're probably going to find out is they have needs, they have hurts, they have desires, they have stuff happening in their life. And so, why don't you seek to serve them?
Right. Absolutely.
Why don't you
Absolutely.
seek to serve them? And so, and when we do that, opportunities come up all the time. Hey, can I pray for you? Hey,
Right.
how can I serve you in this area? How can I help you in this area? Hey, can I hook you up with a connect? Okay. Hey, you're having
Mhm.
some really bad car troubles or whatever,
Yeah.
excuse me, whatever it is. Can I hit you with this connect that I have? It's a reliable mechanic and they're not going to do you
Yeah.
wrong. Like simple stuff.
Yeah, and I think when this gets down to practicality in everyday life, if you're ministering to people, if you'll feel that tension and you'll know. You'll
Yeah.
know. You know what I mean? I don't think it's as gray as we think just looking at it face on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like how about let's have a little game show right now, Johnny.
Okay.
Okay, here's the game show. Okay. I'm gonna give you some scenarios and you tell me is do I be like them or not?
Okay.
You willing to play?
I'm ready. I'm
All right,
so willing.
I'm coming up with these on the fly.
I'm so willing.
All right, here we go. This is the first one. Your friend Dale, right? He grew up in the church. He's interested in going to church, and you've asked him, and he's been reluctant. You get a text from Dale. Dale's like, "Listen, man, you want to come to this club with me tonight? It's gonna be, fun, whatever." And you're like, "Man, this is a good opportunity for me to like share the gospel with Dale." Right? You pull up, parking lot, it's a strip club. Do you go in because, man, I got to share the gospel with this guy, got to get time with him, got to get this face time? Is that too far to be like to save some? John, thoughts?
This is wild. It's absolutely too far. First, when you said club, I was going to be out. I think I was going to be like,
Just club, you were gonna be
yeah,
out.
club. I was out,
You were out of
because
club.
I can understand that. I think some crazy things can pop off in just a normal club. I've watched too many movies, like probably Christian movies on that. But I'm probably out on the club. But what I might ask for him, I might be like, dude, you want to go to the pub? Like, I'm cool with the pub. Like,
Not
just,
with the club.
not with the club, not where the music's like, and all the
Yeah,
I'm
you're
not
not
going there.
about
I'm
that
not going
club.
there. And then you went to the strip club, and I'm
And then you're like,
I am so out.
dude,
I
I'm
am so out. Can we get
so
coffee
out.
the next morning? Because you're
I'm
going to
so
have a
out
rough
on
morning
that.
probably, and you're going to need some coffee. I would love to be there at the nearest Starbucks, hanging out and talking with you. But I'm not going to the strip club. Ne- Next one, man. This is
Okay,
wild.
this is my next one. All right. You're you're a girl for this one, and your friend Rebecca is like she's really into the whole like gems and like stones spirituality. You know what I'm
Mm,
talking about?
okay,
Like
yeah.
she's into like,
New age
new
stuff.
age stuff. And
Yeah.
like you love this girl, you want to see her come to know Christ. And she's like, "Hey, will you just like come and like do this new agey stone stuff with me and just like be with me and at least see what it's all about?" To be like to save some, Johnny. What's your line? What's your thought?
This one's a little trickier for me. Because I know all, like, I want to say, like, there's no power in that stuff, but at the same
Right.
time, like, Satan uses that stuff as well. And so in that sense, there kind of is some power, some demonic power, and forces at play there. Um, I would probably say no. I'm not willing to engage in any of that. No, I know I'd say no, I'm not willing to engage in any of that with you. But like, would you want me there, like discerning? Like, I believe in the Spirit of God. I am all in with Jesus. You know that about me. Is it Becky? You know that about me, Becky.
Yeah, she goes by Becky. She goes by
hypo,
Becky.
hypothetical Becky. So that would be against my morals and my moral conviction. However, I'd love to talk with you about that. Like, I'd love to sit and talk with you about that, but I'm not going to engage in it with you. Um, and yeah, I'm probably not going to be in the room while you're engaging with that stuff. But again, I'm bringing you back to the Bucks. You want to hit up Starbucks, and I just want to listen
Love
to
it.
you as you share your experiences about all that stuff.
Okay. All right. I love it.
Okay,
I'll give you one more. If you want more, I'll give you more, but
I'll
I'll
take
give you
one
one more.
more. I'll take
One
one
more.
more.
All right. Dale. All right. We're back to Dale. Dale's not his given name. Okay. Dale's not his given name. Dale is a Pakistani refugee. Okay. And so Dale, he says, listen, man, my family, you
Oh,
know, they're celebrating Diwali,
mm-hmm,
and I want you to come because you're my friend.
mm-hmm,
And he gives you the garb to wear
mm.
to go show up and celebrate Diwali with his family. To be like to save some, how we feeling?
Oh man, that is a hard one. That Jackson, you came up with these on the fly. I don't think I could answer that one on the fly. Like I'm probably bringing in some counselors in my life because this could be a great opportunity. Because hey, I'm gonna go to this. I'm gonna go to this
Dude,
Diwali.
I'm
I'm
going,
taking off
brother.
my shoes. I think I might consider going, but then it's like, dog, will you come to church with me on Sunday? And like I'd
I'll go to
like,
Diwali, but you
yeah,
gotta come to church with
yeah,
me
will
on
you come
Sunday.
to church with me on Sunday? Again, like as long as we're not like you're not gonna force me to pray and but like dance to some of the music and stuff and like the Indian culture and the or Pakistani culture and everything. Like I can engage in that, I think, with a clear conscience, knowing I am who I am. So, but again, I like for some of these things, I'm probably this is why it's important to have some counselors in your life who are wise, prayed up, love Jesus. So I'm probably engaging with some counselors in my
I'm
life,
probably going to Diwali.
and I'm probably going. I think I'm going. I'm
I think I'm
encouraging my
going.
counselors that I want to go.
I think I want to
Um,
go.
are you guys like? And by the way, the counselors in my life, I'm a pastor, so they're like elders, and so I'm just checking with them for anything that might sound like this could be iffy. Those are great questions. So let's land this plane here a little bit. Someone might be here, Jackson, and they might be like, where do I start? Like,
Oh,
I feel like I've maybe lived like a separatist. Maybe I've recently come to Christ. And by the way, sometimes when you just come to Christ, you become a separatist for like several months because you probably need to be because you've been drinking the culture and drinking the Kool-Aid so much that when Jesus saves you and redeems you, he's like, man, you have to like push the red phone when people are
yeah,
calling. You have to block numbers and everything else. I get that. I lived that at 17 and 18 years old. Stumbled my way through that season. But now you're like, hey, I feel like I'm ready to engage some of my friends who don't
yeah.
know Jesus. Like, where do I start?
This is the question I think that you would need to ask yourself. Who do I need to set the table for?
Bang.
I think that's the question. I think that's where it starts. You know,
Mm,
I think that a lot of us, we have people in our lives who we really want to be saved, you
mm-hmm,
know, that we've been like talking with, all that sort of stuff. And then I think there's some people who are on the periphery of our lives who the
mm-hmm,
Lord may actually be nudging us, but maybe we don't like them. Maybe we don't really want to spend time with them. Maybe it would be difficult to spend time with them. Or maybe that's an opportunity to lay down preferences and say, who do I need to set the table for? Who do I need to invite into my home and just
mm,
start sharing my life with? I think
mm,
that's where we see Jesus do some of his most real ministry
mm,
is at a dinner table. And so I think that's one of the most practical ways to start is say, not do you need to have them over and give them a dissertation on the gospel, but who do you need to set the table for and just start sharing your life with?
I love that. I just to piggyback off that, a question I'd be asking myself is in this season and station of my life, where am I currently most influential? Like
Hmm.
where has God given me the greatest influence? For a lot of us, that's going to be our workplaces, and so start there. Start there. Like genuinely care about people who you work with, right? Or perhaps for a lot of people, that's going to be my family. That's going to be I got a brother, I got a cousin, I got a nephew, I got some people who are just in my family who don't know Jesus, and I love them. I love them so much, and I want them to know Jesus. And so ask the question, like, and where am I hanging out a lot? What are some things that I like to do that I can do that around non-Christians, right?
Yeah,
Within reason, obviously. And yeah, where do I have the most influence right now? And oftentimes God will use you in those seasons. Um,
absolutely.
Man, this was really good. I hope this was really helpful to our viewers, to our listeners, man. Thanks,
Absolutely.
Jackson.
And I just, yeah, I also just want to say, I think Diwali, I think you're right. It's India, not Pakistan. I don't really know what I'm talking about. So
Yeah,
sorry.
I thought it was, yeah. Yeah, no, I was coming into your world there and you're doing all this off the cuff anyway,
It's
so
not
I
my world. It's not my world.
it was the world you created for me though. And
It's
so I
true.
was
It's
just trying
true.
to step in it
It's
with
true.
with Dale. With
Dale.
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 That's awesome.
Dale goes to strip clubs after going to Diwali.
Oh my goodness. I think he's got his own moral failures with his Diwali fam because they
I
be
would
calling
think
him out
so,
there.
man.
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't know what the deal is with
hey
Dale.
man, I love the Dales of the world and I love the Beckys
I
and I
love him too,
love
man.
and I love the Jackson DeRoses of the world. Jackson,
Mm.
appreciate your time
Hey, thanks
today,
for having me,
man.
man.
And thanks so much for taking the time. I
Yes,
appreciate you,
sir.
man. Love you, bro.
Love you. See ya.
Peace.